My name is Scott Stanfield, and I am the modern longevitarian. Welcome to episode 72, titled The Greatest Battlefield is in Between Your Ears. So, I want to say thank you for everybody watching on Spirituality Gone Wild Network, and also thank you for people watching on LinkedIn. So, I'm super excited to be here today. And wow, 72 episodes in, and it's just been a pleasure and honor for me to do all these shows. There is an anonymous adage that says the greatest battles you will ever fight in your life are between your ears. Isn't this true though? The mind is often the biggest battlefield and yet the most unguarded. Tomorrow marks 1 year of the horrific helicopter accident that took 9 lives of the most famous being Kobe Bryant. That day, it left a mark on my life. I'll be honest with you. Totally left a mark on my life. It was Sunday. I was working in Santa Monica. It's before COVID, obviously. And I was off work and went to church that night. As the news rang through every crack and crevice of LA that this had happened. A helicopter crash. I got text messages from employees that or people I worked with and things like that. And as usual, I went to church that night. I drove to Hollywood to go to the Mosaic Hollywood campus, and it was so difficult to even get a parking spot. I had to walk a mile, 15 minutes through a neighborhood once I found a parking spot so I could get to the church. And it was like an Easter Sunday. Even it was colorful because people were wearing all the gold and purple of the Lakers and wearing their Kobe uniform. So you see a lot of 24, a lot of 28, or excuse me, 8. So those are two numbers he played with, 8 and 24. And now this particular Sunday, just the day prior, Pastor Erwin McManus, excuse me, had given a sermon or a memorial service for a female sheriff's officer for LA County who got injured in a car accident. She actually was crossing the street and got hit and passed away. Two young kids, and so he combined this together, and it was just an amazing sermon and super impactful. This particular Sunday was also Baptism Sunday, and there were about 30 people, I think 32, that were slated who had pre-organized to make this public baptism on the sidewalk of Hollywood Boulevard. Now, if you're from South Carolina, like I was, like I am, right, and you're, going to church in Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard at Mosaic, and you're seeing baptism happening there, it's just a super cool experience. But what was even more dramatic was how there was over 30 people, and you can go see this, online. This particular sermon's online. The actual one that I attended under Mosaic Church from January 26, 2020, and and there were people who were just continuously who had just decided that moment in the moment to go get baptized. On It was just a super amazing experience. So it's left a mark in my life. And what really left a mark in my life was, um, we all have a court to play on each day, and we all have a family, and that we can create and leave a lasting legacy. Being famous around the world, like someone with a single name such as Kobe, is beside the point. It totally is beside the point. It's it's more about, being consistent, showing up consistent, being kind to people, and understanding that the most important legacy we can leave is with our family. And so that really, I walked out of there that night after the baptisms. Had to walk back to my car, and that was a long walk, right? It really was, because it was so deep for me. And I find meaning in when people have passed before their time. It always impacts me, like Chef Mike Norman. All of these have always done that to me. And this was one that really impacted me on a great level. Stephen Covey said this. He goes, "I'm not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions." And so decisions in the battlefield of between your ears, the battlefield of your mind. When Kobe was 12, his family had just returned from Italy. His dad was a pro basketball player and played in an Italian league, from probably like when Kobe was from 4 to 12. Now, that summer, when they came back to Philly, because that's where, he's from, that's where they came back to, Kobe played in this famous youth summer league that his dad had played in, his uncle had played in, Wilt Chamberlain had played in. And that year, Kobe's total scoring for the whole league was a Brick Lane goose egg, zero. Did not score anything. But yet, 6 years later, when he graduated from high school, he was drafted straight to the NBA. So what happened is that Kobe started to really understand there was a power decision out of circumstances. And so he played after a trade, he made it to the Lakers. He played for the Lakers for 20 years, right? And he was one of the very few people in the modern day pro sports to play for a single team. And so even at 12 years old, Kobe somehow knew that he could decide to be the best. And the power of decision is super, super powerful. During the time as a pro, this is where Kobe developed a Mamba mentality. And in his words, this is how he summarized his mindset. Mamba mentality is all about focusing on the process and trusting in the hard work when it matters most. It's the ultimate mantra for the competitive spirit. It started just as a hashtag that came to me one day, and it's grown into something athletes and even non athletes embrace as a mindset. What you don't know is that 2 weeks prior to this happening, I was listening to an interview, podcast interview. I listened to multiple for this guy right here, The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. You can see that book right there. And he brought up inside, somebody asked him, the podcaster, I listened to 10 or 15 of them, so I don't remember which one this was, asked him about, does the Mamba mentality or the Black Mamba of Kobe Bryant fit into the alter ego effect? And he said, absolutely. And he went into explaining it a little bit. And then, of course, that led me to start doing research on the actual. I got a lot of stuff typed out today, right? So we're going to make this. I started going down this trail and listening to podcast interviews of Kobe talking about the Mamba mentality. And then you start looking at where he was going and producing, the podcast he produced for kids, the award-winning, video that was created about his poem to basketball, and then what he was going to be developing in the movies going forward in storytelling. And so it really taught me this, that everything that we do in life boils down to our mindset, our vision, and our consistency. So let's say that you want to become a martial artist, a black belt, right? There's no 1 day, 9 hour seminar that you can just show up and at the end of the day, check that box, right? Not that I've seen anyway. There is, let me know about it. And that would be an interesting thing to know. But becoming a black belt is a multi-year commitment filled with determination, grit, a bloody lip or two. Trust me, I've done my time getting up off the mat and tasting blood, right? Just in the process of trying to learn something new with people who are also learning something new. So when my kids took martial arts down in Salt Lake, Master Will would ask them, what's the difference between a white belt and a black belt? A black belt is a white belt that didn't quit, right? And so you can slowly progress over time to become excellent at something. So that's part of the battlefield of this. Instead of this immediate gratification type world that we live in, it takes time to make change and grow and learn and apply your craft and your profession and your trade and all of those things. I won multiple national championships racing go-karts. I did. But it took me 8 years to win my first race. I only raced for 15 years. So that means I had to learn how to win races. And then once I learned how to win races and we got better equipment and support and sponsorships and those type of things, it began growing into when you finish in the top 5 in a national event, and then you start top 2 or 3, then you win a national event. The year I won my biggest championship, limited modified heavy in the Dirt National Series, we won 1 race. I finished second in 2 races, finished 13th in the final race, finished 6th in another race. And so, and that all added up to the best points total for the year to win the championship. So it's about consistency and showing up day in and day out. And so I encourage you to really understand that. To become you, the you were designed to be, you will have to at some point battle the limits that either you or someone else has put on you. These limiting beliefs that hold you back, don't tell yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm not important enough. and I will never get there. Wherever there is, ask yourself, or if you ask yourself, why am I never good enough? Right? These are all limiting beliefs. I encourage you right now to become a freaking rebel, a rule breaker, because there's rules that are holding you back that you don't even know exist. It might be telling you that I'll never be fit enough. I'll never be strong enough. I'll never be good enough. I'll never be any of these things. I love the way Bruce Lee puts this, going back to martial arts. If you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits, there are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them. Again, that's from Bruce Lee. And all all that we know of the legendary Bruce Lee happened after he had a motorcycle accident, and the doctors told him he would never walk again, much less practice martial arts or actually create his own martial arts that changed the landscape of arts and was the precursor to what we now call MMA. Created a whole new category after he was told he would never even walk again. Absolute crazy. I love this Persian poet. I'll probably mispronounce the name. Hafiz said, "The words you speak become the house you live." So, not even the words that come out of your mouth, but the words that are in your head, in that inner voice that you never let anybody else hear, right? Like there's a Hootie and the Blowfish song that says, it's called Not Even the Trees, right? Nobody's listening to me, not even the trees is the line. I don't listen to that song anymore because how can it be somebody who has a live show, episode 72, that say, nobody listens to me, not even the trees? No, everybody listens to me. When I say that, and that's just a way to turning that around, right? I turned that around and said, I am a well respected thought leader. I love the way Henry Ford said it too. And this sums up mindset to me in just one sentence. Whether you think you can or you cannot, you're right. I saw myself for those 8 years winning national championships. It took me that long to figure out how to do it with the help of friends, the Sox family, the Camp family, the Myers family, people who helped me all along the way, and my dad and my mom, and then my own internal drive to be really good at something I had passion about. Let's break down some battles that are based on the pillars of being a modern longevitarian, because this is about living your best life and extending your prime years as long as you can, right? This is what it's really about. I'm inspired by the fact that my parents both got cancer at age 55, and my dad had prostate cancer and survived at 72. Mom turned 70 in April. She had a hysterectomy because she had uterine cancer. My dad's dad, my grandfather, he had cancer and passed away at age 62. My uncle, Uncle Al, had prostate cancer, passed away 60 and a couple months old. He was actually by marriage. So this allowed me to see what the external factors are that impact our lives and our genetic expression. But I want to really kind of break this down for you. And I wrote this early this morning. Actually, took about 3 hours preparing for this particular show because it's that important to me. Let's break down some battles based on the pillars of a modern longevitarian and understand that the very first thing you may need to do is find your Roger Bannister in each of these categories that you want to move dramatically forward in life. If I can be that for you, then get off the couch and let's go. All right, so let me show you a picture, right? How different do you think this guy thought on the left, age 31, and on the right, at my dad's 70th birthday party, right? Birthday weekend 2 years ago. I was 46 years old at this point. Maybe, 46. I'm 48. I turned 49 in March, right? So how different do you think these two guys thought, right? The power's in the decision. It's not in the circumstances. It's not in my genes. It's in the genetic expression. Okay. So just think about that. Next page, right? The first pillar is mindset. We just covered all that stuff, or, at least gave a glancing blow on mindset, and that you are in control of, and you are fighting a battle in your mind between your ears, the most important battlefield. Pillar number 2 is breath. In my early 40s, I started developing some issues with breathing while I was awake and while I was sleeping. It's compounded by my chronic sinusitis that I beat, right? So what did I do? Well, I started on going down this trail of doing multiple types of breathing exercises. I did things like I did Buteyko. I did well recently done Buteyko breathing, but I've done things. I got it down here. This is a breathing apparatus, a training muscle trainer to make my breath stronger. This is created by Boss Rutan, MMA fighter, who had asthma as a kid and developed this thing kind of like a snorkel. You can restrict your air as it goes in, but it's no restriction going out to build your muscles around your lungs and your diaphragm and those type of things. What I don't like about that is actually forces you to breathe through your mouth. And I'm developed over time the understanding of nasal breathing, how much more important it is. So I don't use that very often right now. I did when I came back from sea level to high altitude to kind of work on those things. I also over time, I've been over 2 years now. I've been taping my mouth closed when I sleep, and I got this from not doctor, but Patrick McKeon of the Buteyko International Clinic in Ireland, who trained under Dr. Buteyko, which is a Russian doctor that worked with cosmonauts in the 50s. And so nasal breathing is by far the most important thing that you can do. So Patrick McKeon was my Roger Bannister. He had surgery on his nose, but nobody ever told him to breathe through it. So I'm telling you right now, breathe through your nose. 70% of American adults are mouth breathers. So when somebody has their mask down here and people are complaining, there's only a 30% chance they're actually using their nose because 70% of us are breathing through our mouths. So really work on that. And also James Nestor, who wrote the book Breathe, the new science behind a lost art. He did a study when he was doing research for this book where he plugged his nose closed like he had a sinus infection or a cold or a flu or something, right? Couldn't breathe. And prior to the test, he was snoring 4 minutes a night. And then 3 or 4 days later, he was snoring 4 hours a night, developed sleep apnea. And so if you're not breathing through your nose while you're sleeping, you're not doing yourself any good because you're sending messages to your nervous system that you're in stress and fight or flight and you need to run away or stand up and put some fist up and really get going. And so you need to send messages while you're in sleeping of rest and relaxation, which is that breathing through your nose, right? So breathing's so important. By the way, 50% of our children, mine included, 50%, breathe through their mouth as well. So we need to teach our kids to breathe through our nose as well. So in your workouts, no matter what you're doing, if you're starting to have to force to breathe yourself through your mouth, slow down, take a break, and get to the point to where you actually can breathe through your nose again, and you will get stronger and there. Pillar 3 is hydration. 72% of American adults are chronically dehydrated. Now, there was no specific person that is a Roger Bannister for me in this area, or somebody who broke a barrier or a mindset barrier for me in this. But the bulk of my research on dehydration came from the book I wrote on sleep, what I'll get to in the next pillar, but really understanding net hydration. And when you look at hydration and how important that is, if you really want to understand that, there's an app, how important hydration is, start looking at the impact of when you're dehydrated. Your blood's going to be thicker, so it makes your heart work harder, so it can create heart disease, right? Think about that. If you put too thick of an oil in your engine in your car, it actually would do damage because the engineers designed your engine to operate what is the oil pump has to move the oil to the upper parts of the engine so it can then lubricate from the top down. You put too thick of an oil, it has to work too hard to get it up there, get the oil to the top of the engine, to the valves and the valve springs and the pistons and the push rods, if you have push rods, or the cam and the cam bearings and all those things. So it can actually lubricate the engine to the pistons and the rings and the rod bearings and all those things. So it then can operate properly. So your blood has a optimal viscosity that needs to operate. And if you're dehydrated, you're running too thick of an oil and your pump's working too hard and it may break down, right? That's my analogy on that. So that's just one of them that can happen, right? Dehydration is dry skin. It's another one. It could be, so many different things, right? So I've got a couple comments in. And so Sharon's got a great episode, Scott. Thank you very much. And then we've also got from Jean-Baptiste. Hello from Lyon, France. France, right? Glad to have you live. Thank you for watching and tuning into the show. and from all the way from France. That makes me super happy. I studied French in school, and French is the model for a lot of things. Have dealt with a lot of French type things in language in the restaurant business all these years. Back to the pillars. Okay. All right. So hydration is super important. So tap into that. When I pillar 4 is sleep, and when I put each one of the pillars into Google Analytics, by far off the charts, the search term sleep gets more searches by people out into the real world than any of the other pillars. That's why I wrote the book, Outstanding Landing: How to Get the Sleep of Your Dreams, because I knew that it could help more people by getting a better night's sleep than me writing a book on how to do breathing, or the Wim Hof method, or any of those things. Now, when I did a poll recently on LinkedIn, and which was the most important, which was diet, exercise, or sleep, right? And it was basically even between all the things that were on the poll. But yet, when you go look at what most people sleep and what most people struggle with, is sleep, right? So sleep touches every single system in the body. Now, if you're cranky, you could be dehydrated, or you also could have a lack of sleep, right? So they go hand in hand. You realize that when you get a lack of sleep, and I got my hand going like crazy, lack of sleep, it actually suppresses the hormone that helps maintain hydration. And also there's things that happen with lack of sleep where you're going to be hungry because it's going to produce more of the hormone called ghrelin. I call it ghrelin the gorilla, because when this hormone comes on to make you hungry, the hunger hormone, it's a tough one to wrestle. It totally is. Right. So I noticed that if I don't have good sleep patterns, that I get hungrier earlier in the day, right? Where instead of my normal 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I first start getting hungry. And that has to do with this extra gorilla ghrelin hormone release that is tough to wrestle. So I don't like wrestling big, strong gorillas. I know it's tough. I know I'm going to lose. So I buy into it and I go have a snack. And so I understand that when I don't have the right amount of sleep, that I may have to lose a wrestling match with this big gorilla. And so it will also suppress the society the hormone for satiation, whether you're full or not. It increases cravings for salty, sugary, type of high carbohydrate snacks. And so what happens is I will notice that I will eat a lot of salty things. Like I'll crave bacon. I don't have bacon in the house, and don't have it in the house unless it's a special holiday that my kids want it for or something. And we get beef bacon, not pork bacon, if we can find it. But my point being is this, right? It's a power of choice, right? When we're going to get bacon, choose the beef versus the pork. But my thing is that we'll eat a lot of like pistachios or cashews or nuts or whatever we have, or peanut butter, and sprinkle extra um, extra salt on the top. So I am craving saltier and higher carbohydrate foods, but within being a ketogenic practitioner, low carb lifestyle, I have to find what fits into that, make a really good decision. So it's not my circumstances, it's the power of decision that happens. So you can go to my website, strongforlonger.com, and download my book called Outstanding Landing: How to Get the Sleep of Your Dreams. And it has these 7 steps to sound sleep. So I encourage you to do that if you're struggling with sleep, or even if you want to optimize it, it's tap in there. All right. So Miranda's got a comment came in. So true. A solid night's sleep shapes your day. It is so true. And the most important piece of this is your evening routine. And I know, I get it. You may have, some of you just discovered Miracle Mornings by Hal Elrod, and you just worked out your morning routine. And now I'm telling you need an evening routine. But the thing is that you've got to find your sleep type, your circadian clock, your natural rhythms, and then optimize your whole life wrapped around that. I'm a night owl. I go to bed late at night. I'm fine with that. Having a 10 o'clock, morning show is like the earliest thing that I would commit to, because I know that I like to sleep in later. And so, but my whole life is wrapped around that. So if I know that I'm going to go to bed at midnight, I can eat up until 9 or 10 o'clock, where other people may say, don't eat after 7. Well, they're early birds. They're morning people. They get up in the morning and they eat. I don't eat. The first time I'll ever think about anything is probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So my whole life, my whole eating schedule, my workout routines, whenever I do these things, are based off my circadian clock, my natural rhythms. And that's different for me than it will be for you. So go find your own way. And that's what the book is. It has a worksheet that you can work backwards from your sleep time, or when you have to get up in the next morning and develop your best possible day based off your sleep patterns. It's, I know it's kind of weird, but that's just how the best way to do this is. Now reverse engineer it from that. Pillar 4, there is fuel, which is food. Now here's an interesting thing, right? There's 5 F's inside of this fuel pillar. But before we get to that, let's talk about how many Americans are overweight and obese. It's a bumping on 75% of Americans. That means 1 in 4 are actually fit. I mean, do you realize that your waist to hip ratio is a precursor to show where you're going to be in terms of lifespan and chronic disease? Waist to hip ratio. So your waist should be smaller than your hips, right? For some people who are pear shaped or pear shaped, that may be easier to do. So you got to take that into consideration. It's not a one size fits all with this, but 75% and the growing number of Americans that are obese is moving up. And I saw something the other day, I think it's at 54% of Americans, over 50% of us are overweight. I mean, at the obese level. And so, wow. Wow. I mean, and I was there. I've been 40 pounds overweight twice. 9 years ago, when I was 39 turning 40, I lost 40 pounds at age 40. And that was the second time in 5 years I'd lost 40 pounds. And so I get the yo-yo impact of life and how we can beat it to death by doing something like P90X, like I did when I was 35, but then finding a way to maintain that and be able to keep it all forever and finding a way to do that. So first of all, let me say this about fuel. And a lot of people ask me, why is food, especially for someone who's been in the food and beverage or restaurant industry for almost 30 years, have it as the 5th pillar? And we tell you why. Because it's nowhere near as important as the first ones. Mindset is everything. I get that. And you should understand that. And that's what this is really about, is your mindset around all these things. And how you have to fight this battle inside your brain. So when I switched to ketogenic diet, that was easy for me to do because I had already slayed the dragons of the way that I was taught to eat by my parents by being a vegetarian for the 10 years prior to that. So so what happens is that's why there's so many different keto breads and sweeteners and sugars and cookies and things like that, because in your head, you still think you need to eat a burger with bread. My family had fish sandwiches with bread last night. I'm the one that goes to the grocery store. I bought them this really cool non-GMO bun that has all these seeds in it for them to eat. I didn't have that. I don't eat that, right? It's just not on my diet. It's not in my lifestyle. Now, if I decide to have a burger or something that would normally have bread, I can wrap it in lettuce, or I can make some sort of keto version of bread. But when I started keto 5 years ago, you couldn't buy any of that in the store. So I'm not even programmed to eat keto bread that way. They just eat a completely different way. And why is that? Not that I'm special. I had to change the way that I thought, and the power of decision. Was sitting there, people bring donuts to work when I worked in restaurants, and people were sitting in the office together. They're like, "Would you like a donut?" I said, "No, thank you." Like, Scott, how do you do this? How do you have willpower? It's not willpower. It's just a decision to eat a different way. The same thing, a decision to eat a different way by when I eat, not just what I eat. Okay. So let's back this up a little bit. Pillar 1 is mindset is everything. Pillar number 2, how long can we live without oxygen before brain cells start to die? About 5 minutes. Okay. 10 minutes, game over without oxygen. Oxygen is by far the most essential nutrient that our body needs 24/7. Talked about the breath. I talked about breathing while you sleep. I talked about, and even Nestor went on to say at the end of that quote about his book is that if you're not breathing right while you're sleeping, you'll never be healthy. So the breath is so important. It's the most essential. Oxygen is the most essential nutrient that we need day in and day out, 24/7. How long can you hold your breath? The max I've done it at sea level is about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, right? Without that, things start turning sideways, right? Totally sideways. Okay. And then water. How long can we go without water and hydration? Well, we can walk around chronically dehydrated and be cranky all day long. I get that, and create these chronic disease problems down the road. But if you take water away completely, somewhere between 3 and 7 days, depends on where you started in your hydration level. And since most of us are chronically dehydrated, we're starting at a deficit. And then what environment? 3 days in the desert is going to be a painful ride. Trust me, right? Never done it, but I've gone to the desert here in Utah and not drank enough water and then struggle for the next couple of days to get caught up. So I learned my lesson, right? So just understand that if you're doing things that cause you to lose hydration by being in a low humidity area like the desert or high desert like here in the mountains or altitude, then you're going to have to focus on your hydration. So 3 to 7 days, right? And then sleep comes in at number 4, right? Sleep deprivation, right? Take food away for 24 hours, you're fine. Take your exercise away for 24 hours, you're fine. Stay up all night. See how do you feel in the morning, right? Diet and exercise are more important sleep is more important than diet and exercise combined. Sleep is more important than diet and exercise combined. Jesus Christ and David Blaine both fasted for 40 days. I myself have gone 21-day stretch with 10,000 calories. I've gone 86 hours on water only. So 3 hours, just 10 hours short of 4 days. The world record on water fasting by this lad in Scotland who weighed 385 pounds. Well, no, he made more than that. He made more than that. It was 385 days that he fasted on water. This is in Dr. Jason Fund's book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. So 385 days. He took some supplements and things like that he thought he needed, but he lost a half a pound a day. At the end of it, he weighed 185 pounds, right? He water fasted that long. They're curing people with water fasting. So food's not as important. We are what we eat, literally. I get it. But we also are when we eat. When I read The Warrior Diet, it was my Roger Bannister. It gave me permission to skip the meal of the day. It was a laborsome process for me to get down. I was told, just like you were told, that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It is. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be in the morning for me. Now, if you're an early morning person, like my friend Bob Wholesale is 78 years old, he intermittent fasts and he's keto and he learned this on his own. He didn't get it from me, right? And it just one day when we reconnected, when I got back to Utah, started to tell me about where he was. He was actually doing calorie counting in his 40s before there was a phone or a spreadsheet or any of those things that actually did that. He had books to do this, and he still has the journals in the garage where he tracked calories all these years. But my point is that his last meal of the day is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's my first meal of the day. We operate completely differently based on a sleep type. He wakes up in the morning and he's hungry and he eats, and then he has a late lunch, and that's he's done for the day on most days. For me, I wake up in the morning and I'm not hungry. Now I got up earlier today than normal because I went to bed earlier than normal, and so I got up at 6:30. So am I 20 hours for me on my fast today? It's going to be 3:30 in the afternoon. I've got somewhere to be at 4 o'clock, so I'm probably going to make it about 18 and a half hours before I have something to eat today. Now, that meal is super important because it is my breakfast and I haven't consumed anything in that amount of time other than I had a cup of coffee this morning with some heavy cream in it. So those are the things that are there, right? So let me see what I wrote about fuel this morning here. So over the 5 F's, let's get back to the 5 F's. So clean food, no glyphosate in it. Try to eat as organic and clean as you possibly can, as local as you possibly can. Glyphosate is going to be in things because it's just part of our environment now. It's in the rain, it's all those things. But glyphosate takes the place of glycine in your body, and it actually is killing us in the short term, but is also killing the bacteria because whatever it does, it kills everything that it hits except the genetically modified food that is designed to live through the Roundup or the glyphosate. So those are things. And other thing about is avoid things that have estrogenetics in it. I interviewed Dr. Anthony J on the show a week ago, on Monday today, a week ago. And we talked about his book, Estrogeneration, why estrogenics, why they're making you fat, sick, and infertile. So really understand those two aspects of things. Getting clean food that are low in toxins, so your body and your liver and your kidneys don't have to overload, are not overloaded, and won't have to overload their work to keep you clean, right? If you're having things that are like eczema and psoriasis and those type of things, or outbreaks and rashes, is because your skin is a secondary way of getting toxins out from your liver. So if you're overburdening your liver with toxins, you may see it come out in your skin. So understand clean food. Number 2 is fiber. Fiber is fuel and a prebiotic for your probiotics, which are, your bacteria in your gut that you really need to feed the good bacteria and have this balanced microbiota ecosystem in your system. We house this all these bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungus inside of our body, and having that ecosystem live in balance is by far the most important thing. When my son was in kindergarten or first grade, he created this terrarium, and they did this. It was in preschool, I think, right? And we had it, and there was this perfect environment that was living for years, probably 10 years, just living in there. It was perfection, right? And then my daughter opened it one day and changed the environment. And then everything in it died. It lived for 10 years because the way it was built. And so what happens is if you've taken antibiotics in your life, you've changed your microbiota balance, the ecosystem that lives inside of you. If you take NSAID, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, which you may have heard some brand names like Advil or Aleve, those type of things, it's like setting a nuclear bomb off in your gut, right? All these things happen. If you eat too many carbs, or eat too many mushrooms or any of those type of things, you may be feeding the fungus and have a Candida albicans overgrowth. That means that an overgrowth means that that microbiota is out of balance. So fiber as fuel is super important. You can probably see the book right over my shoulder right here, Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will B. And this is super important to get that. So diets should be based off the blue zone, 90% plant-based or more. And so work on getting more plants in your diet so you can have fiber that fuels your gut and feeds this well-balanced ecosystem in your body. Okay. Then there's fasting, intermittent fasting. Our bodies are designed, and I love this quote by to fast and feast. And I love this quote by Dr. Jason Fung that says, our bodies are designed for feast and famine, not feast, feast, feast. And I think he used feast 3 times: breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between. No, we were not designed to do that. It's been proven. Now, if your mind's wrapped around the fact that you need to eat all the time for whatever reason, if you're a bodybuilder, you need to eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolism going, that's not true. I'm speaking into the microphone really loudly. That's not true, right? You can actually, but through fasting, actually increase human growth hormone because your body's actually gives itself energy so you can actually go find food, right? And the best thing about fasting is that when you actually do get to the feast portion, the food's going to taste better and smell better and just be amazing, right? So fasting is super important. Get to where you're starting with the 16-8. Now, I'm not a dietitian, a doctor, or even play one on the internet. I was a director of food and beverage at a hospital for over 3 years, right? So I understand this. I've been around this my entire life, the bad ways and the good ways, right? I was drinking spirulina smoothies in my early 20s. I was a vegetarian in college. Then I struggled with my weight and then I solved it. And 9 years ago is when intermittent fasting came into my life through a gift. Somebody gifted me the book, The Warrior Diet, and I found it and I read it and I found this tool that I use day in and day out. So fasting is super important. Your mindset has to be right. And you have to battle your mind to think and understand that fasting is good for me. And it actually heals. You get to the point where your body's tapping into this process called autophagy. Autophagy is where the body eats itself and it eats the bad cells and then repairs it with good ones, right? Healthy cells. So trust that that is the way. And if I did nothing else, no matter if I was in France and needed to eat a croissant, I still would fast. I still would fast. So no matter if I'm a high carb, low carb lifestyle, no matter what those things are, fasting is the one cornerstone in my life around fuel that I will always, always have and always use and recommend as my number one piece of this pillar. Now, feasting is the next piece. So, yes, feast, enjoy food. I'm a foodie. I love cooking food. I'm threatening to do some live cooking shows here. And if you're interested in that, let me know. I've already got an idea for when I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or close to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I actually can eat the food because I think it would be incongruent and out of alignment to actually me to do it early in the morning because I don't actually eat during that time. So I need to do it based off when I eat because I want to actually taste it and it's going to smell really good. And I want to be in alignment with what I'm actually teaching every one of you that are listening to this. And so I'm spending a lot of time on this. So the other two, so it's clean food, it's fiber, it's fasting, it's feasting, right? And then it is metabolic flexibility. So flexibility and being a carb burner and being a fat burner and get in. If you're fasting the right way, you're going to get to burning fat and be in ketosis if you're fasting long enough each day or the days you choose to do that. So get your body into the fat adaptation or fat burning mode through a little bit of intermittent fasting every day or a couple times a week so you can build metabolic flexibility. And that's super important. Number 6, movement. The modern day wisdom is to eat less and move more, and it doesn't fit with what the blue zones say, right? It just doesn't. It does and it doesn't, right? They say we need to go out and exercise, and there's benefits to exercise and all these, hormone releases and those type of things. But exercise is a supplement for the lack of movement in our life. And I believe in supplements. I do take a B12 and I take vitamin C from time to time, and I recently just took, Dr. Linda Ellison's a wellness supplement from Caillou Health. I took that with 19 amino acids from this rare breed of cow that she creates a broth from, and then dehydrates it down into a powder. Yeah. Do I believe in supplements? Yeah. So do I like exercising? Yeah. Super meditative for me. I love it. Absolutely love exercising. But in the blue zones, they have a lifestyle that basically um, prompts him to move every 20 to 30 minutes. If you notice, especially when I interview other people, I'm moving around a lot. Why am I moving around? Because I'm standing up, right? I'm standing almost all day long, unless I'm in a super creation mode. I go sit at the dining room table downstairs and I get to interact with my family or have my earbuds in or whatever those things are in. So I stand a lot. I move around a lot. My alarm goes off on my phone when I'm not doing a show every 30 minutes. I'm either doing push ups or squats or taking a break. I'm doing something that prompts me to go up and down the stairs, do those type of things. And so movement is super important. And so again, the blue zones are something that inspired me for that. My Roger Bannister in a way, right? I'm gonna move kind of quickly here. We're at 43 minutes. Pillar 7s get uncomfortable, get cold and get hot, right? Get hot, get cold, get out of this thermostat world that we live in, right? Get out of that. So it may involve taking a Scottish shower where you start normal and you go get a little bit colder as you go through. By the time you get to the end of the shower, it's a little bit colder. Ancestral, and ancient cultures, we get our cold waterfalls, right? They had no choice. They didn't have water heaters and things like that. And so there's so many benefits to getting cold and hot as well, which basically creates this hermetic effect, which basically this creates a positive stress. Exercise is a positive stress that our body rebounds from and makes us stronger or makes us be able to run longer or something like that. The same thing with cold. Not that it makes you be able to stay in cold longer, but it strengthens your immune system. Some people say for men, it releases testosterone. It's the opposite of what we've been told. Go take a cold shower. That happens immediately, but 15, 20 minutes later, supposedly, testosterone is released and increases, right? So there's positive effects from that. It will convert white fat to brown fat. Brown fat has more mitochondria in it than white fat. That's what makes it a different color. And mitochondria is an energy producer. So you burn more calories when the more brown fat that you have. And so there's all these different pieces to the puzzle. Reduces inflammation. Then when you go into getting hot, and I take hot showers and hot baths, I don't have a Finland or Finnish style sauna. Don't have one, but supposedly those actually can increase endurance athletes' ability to go into exhaustion by 32%. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she's a PhD, has done ample research on this and actually touts it a lot, along with broccoli sprouts and sulforaphane and those type of, getting more sulfur from your diet, those type of ways. But in specifically how saunas can, increase your cardiovascular ability and also like release toxins through sweat, and how people live longer if they use saunas multiple times a week. So getting hot, breaking a sweat is just as important as getting cold and getting the positive stress benefits from the cold. So both of those are super important. And then connecting with nature, connecting with the planet Earth by earthing and grounding, and then also connecting with your community. And so, in terms of grounding or earthing, Clint Ober, you can see this for free on YouTube. Search the Earthing documentary, and it'll tell you the positive benefits that happen from The positive benefits that happen from putting your bare skin on the planet. Now, I live in the mountains at 7,000 feet. It snowed over a foot over the last 2 days. And so I could go outside, and I do from time to time, and walk barefoot in the snow, but there's only so much I can handle, right? Even if it's 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes. So my wife and I both have pillowcases that are plugged into the grounding part of the outlet, and it works. I know that I'm grounded because if I toss and turn a little bit as I'm getting comfortable in these winter flannel sheets, that I'll get shocked on my pillowcase. Somewhere on my face will actually release the static electricity into the earth because our houses, the electrical system in our home is grounded. And so that's super important. So Clint Ober was my Roger Bannister in this area. By the way, Wim Hof, who I the um, discovered from the Tim Ferriss show, is obviously my Roger Bannister when it comes to cold exposure and all of those things, right? And so then the blue zones talk about the connection between longevity and connecting with your community. I break it down as family, friends, and community because I think there's different layers of that, especially since we're all locked at home now, right? Especially since we're all locked at home, stay at home orders, and spending more time with our families and maybe working from home and those type of things. So now this can be difficult during this time, but I get it. So making change starts when you imagine a different result or outcome. You first have to imagine it in your mind. And you also have to also realize that there's this thing holding you back. I encourage you to be a rebel and start breaking the rules that were given to you by somebody. When somebody says that's not the way the world works, that's a load of crap, a load of buffalo bagels, as they would say on MASH, as Colonel Parter would say. So I wrote this morning. Making change starts when you imagine a different result or outcome. This battle is fought between your ears first. You may have to wrestle with a subconscious program from your childhood or some trauma or decision from an experience as an adult. If you tell yourself that I will never be fit, then guess what? The words you speak with your inner voice that no one else hears becomes the house you live. If you say, no matter what, I try it, but it does not work, the words you speak become the house you live. You must get to this ninja level of self awareness about what is happening inside your head. You must then govern over these thoughts and move into the positive. This is what I suggest you do right now. I'm going to give you something actionable to do, and I've been doing this since the first of the year. Open a page in your journal, open a page in your notes app, somewhere. I don't care where it is. Start collecting your limiting beliefs as a record of what you're telling yourself. And I brought mine with me here. It's on my desk here. Right here, I got this book. And let me move this pencil out here. But I have all the things that I've written this new year. Right? I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've written pages after pages after pages, right? So what happens is that you take this record down of all the things you're telling yourself that I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not fit enough. Then why am I never good enough to fill in the blank? You write all these things down that you're telling yourself. This is an open record because new things are going to surface that are surfacing for you to repattern. The rigor of life is going to bring these thoughts and these limiting beliefs and these rules that you've told yourself or somebody told you, right, that are begging for you to change them and repattern them. And once you get these down, right, even today, just write this down. You know, our family just recently discovered one that said, when you do this, it makes me feel unimportant, right? And so it's super it's super important for you to really understand this. And what happens when you get a couple of these down? Take just 1% of your day. It's 14 minutes and 24 seconds. 1% of your day to write down the positive, right? I'm not good enough is I was born enough. I am more than good enough to do anything I want to do in my life. All right. I'm not important enough, right? It can turn into my life. And the reason that I'm still breathing today makes everything I do important to the world. Change it into the positive. Super, super high, super change this into the positive. right? And then you can start creating and imagining this life and writing it with, I'm so happy and grateful now that, right? You can and change this. And then also with this ninja level self awareness, notice it in the moment that it happens, where you're at work or out in the community or with your family or your friends, or just when an idea comes up to you with you, like the modern longevitarian. I bought this domain name as I was losing 40 pounds at age 40. I turned 49 in a couple of months. I've owned this domain name. It took me 8.5 years to get something out in the world with modern longevitarian. Just like Kobe, I played around with a couple of hashtags on it on Instagram starting a couple of years ago. Had some decals made, and I got one on the back of this laptop computer and one on my FJ and then on one on my Mini Cooper. Right, I am the modern longevitarian. Right, instead of how can someone who is human, who may not feel great all the time, tell people about how they can live a life where they extend their health span. Well, you know what? I'm healthier today than I was yesterday. That's what I tell myself. That's what I write in this book. I'm healthier today than I was yesterday. I am so happy and grateful now that I am at 9.47% body fat. I am a proud provider for my family. All of those things are in this book that I write down each and every day. And I've only missed one day in these 24 days or 25 days of the year. And I'm going to do it immediately following the show because took the time this morning to get ready for the show because that's how important it was to me and how I think it should be important to you. I'm going to wrap this up right here. My name is Scott Stanfield. I am the modern longevitarian. We did have another comment come in from Miriam. Great show. And a quick shout out to Eddie Lucerian. Love the show you two had and got 2 of his books, which he autographed. Thank you both. And Miriam, that's awesome. I got his books up here on the shelf as well. He actually signed them for my kids, one for my son and one for my daughter. And that was a great episode, which kicked off 7 interviews in a row. This is the first solo episode in 8 episodes, and I want to just say that the greatest battlefield that you ever have to step onto as a warrior is between your ears. And so another one here, John Jensen, just came in. Great show for a Monday. Thanks, Scott. It's my pleasure, John. And I know that this has made the biggest impact on my life is really changing my mindset. And having a life coach for over 2 years really helped me through this process. And so putting together all of these pieces of the puzzle and really helps me, and I'm sharing it with the world. So, because there's no private or secret good. What helps one is good for us all. So if something helps you, right? If Eddie's 64 life hacks for success is helping Miriam and helping me and helping others, that's amazing. And this platform of the modern longevitarian that you can tap into by going to strongforlonger.com or the live show here on Spirituality Gone Wild or on LinkedIn or the other 6 places we stream on YouTube or on Facebook. Tap into that, right? These live shows. And so tune in tomorrow. We have Joe, the founder of the Love Wave, is going to be my guest. I'm super excited to have him. He's also part of the Spirituality Gone Wild Network. And I could go on for days. It's been 55 minutes. My name is Scott Stanfield, and I wish you all a great day. And again, I am the modern longevitarian, and it's time to roll the credits. Thanks for watching. Cheers.